Hi, Klovisa. Welcome. Welcome, welcome. I'm so glad you could finally join a live. Dinewa, hi. Hey, Takia. Thank you so much, guys, for joining today's live. Today, we are talking about corporate bullying. It's a topic that has come up quite a bit in the conversations that I've had, but I have received a very special and direct request to focus specifically on corporate bullying for today's session. So I will be in conversation with Uleboheng Mangadi, who is going to join me on this live. And essentially, I have because I'm always trying to have these conversations with you guys, and I don't get time, obviously, to interact with each and every person one on one. I just simply, obviously, don't have the capacity for that. But where I can, I do want to be able to use my platforms to be able to have these conversations with you. And so she'll be joining the live, and she'll be asking me all of the questions that she wants to ask, and you guys will get to be part of that conversation. So that as many of us can benefit from it as possible. Please do send through your questions and comments as well. We'd love to have that as part of the conversation. So once I have Oleon, I haven't seen your request yet, sis. Please send me your request to join the live, and then we can kick off this conversation. Hi, everybody. Taking notes, yes, please take notes. It's such a complex topic. There's always so much to it, so many things to know and to learn and to, even for somebody like me who's always speaking about this stuff, I'm always learning new things. I'm just waiting for Ollie to send me through her request, and then we can kick off this session. Hi, guys. Earlier today, I had a live with Olwetu Lishabane, focusing on toxic workplaces and their impact on our mental health, but also how to identify toxic patterns, behaviors, and cultures within organizations. So if you didn't get a chance to watch that live, it is available on her Instagram, her IGTV. So please do go and have a look at that. I think that there's a lot of stuff that you might find helpful in there. Still waiting for. Okay. Let's see if this works. Hello.
Hi. My network is so bad.
Oh, shame. Sorry. Well, we'll do what we can.
Yeah, because I'm trying to connect, and I'm like, oh God, not today. Please, not today.
I know the feeling. Earlier today when I had to do the other live,
Yeah.
we had load shedding, and I was just like, oh, today of all days, this is
Like
not the
seriously?
time.
Yes. How are you?
I'm very, very well. How are you?
I'm great, and thank you so much for accepting my invite.
It's an
Yay!
absolute
My
pleasure.
request.
It's a pleasure. So, do you want to just tell everybody about yourself, and then why you specifically wanted to speak about corporate bullying?
My name is Bucheng. I'm from Rustenburg. I've been in HR now for 8 years. And I think only now, for the past 2 years, I would say I'm able to say we are now tapping into challenges of HR, and corporate bullying is one of the main issues that is not being addressed to the way I could say we need to be addressing it. And I think I came to you about it because I thought this is the every lunch topic, every dinner with the girls topic, your mom who's still working topic. So it's like a topic for everyone that I feel like let's just try to see where we can go with it.
All right. Okay. So, where do you want to start this conversation?
Let's start with, in your own words, what is corporate bullying?
Bullying in corporate. That is the simplest way to explain it, but I think it goes back to firstly defining what bullying is, because yes, we say corporate bullying because it takes place within the context of, for those of us who work within a corporate environment, but it's essentially workplace bullying. So it can take place wherever it is that you work. It's not necessarily limited to just corporate, but bullying really is such a range of different experiences that people have within the workplace. Bullying could be getting shouted at. Bullying could be being excluded or being isolated or being taken off of projects as a form of punishment. Bullying can be given the silent treatment. Bullying can be being intentionally excluded from opportunities for promotions or progressing within the workplace. Bullying can be sexual harassment. Bullying can be being punished for being outspoken. There's so many different ways in which it manifests itself within the workplace. And I think that one of the biggest issues that we have with it and why it's so pervasive in the workplace is that even from an HR perspective, and you would know this, you know, organizations can have policies that say no bullying, but they don't detail what they constitute as part of bullying within that particular environment. And so people, I guess, are subjected to all of these various forms of bullying. And some of them are a lot more nuanced than others. Some are a lot more obvious. But I think for many people, we think bullying is something that kind of stops when you're a kid. You know, once you leave high school, nobody's going to bully you anymore. And when you get to the workplace, you kind of think, oh, well, you know, it's just the way things are, and I must just kind of toughen up. I guess it just means I just need to I need to have a thick skin, or I just need to adapt to the environment. And we don't actually think this is bullying, because how can I as an adult be bullied? You know, we try to reason our way out of the fact that it is actually bullying.
And I think the other thing is it's like it's kind of expected but not expected. And I'm saying that because of how we react to it in most cases. It kind of like shocks you, and then you're like, no, but this is how people are treated. Have we made it a normal thing in our day-to-day lives? Have we made it our bread and butter? It's like, now it's okay, that's how they treat me.
Well, yeah, absolutely. Because if you think about the language that is used when you speak about being a successful person or being a focused person within the workplace, and particularly within a corporate or private sector, we are so used to, we have normalized terms like, oh, well, you know, it's dog eat dog. How does that even make sense as something that is healthy and good and safe for people? You know, if you think about how when women are told, or women are being trained or empowered to progress within the workplace, generally the sentiment is you need to show up and behave like a man. Right? You need to be aggressive. You need to be unemotive. You can't have empathy. You need to be cold. You need to be all of these things that all constitute an unhealthy work culture. And essentially, you're forcing everyone to move away from being their authentic selves and become this very European/Western white definition of success, which is cold, it is brutal, it is violent, it is harmful.
My screen just went black, but anyway. Another thing, Sihle, is, do you think, I did mention that I'm in HR, that do you think our policies subject us to this? Because the other thing that I find happens is that when we find that my boss is the one who's bullying me, there's never really a person to mediate the situation. Now it becomes my responsibility to kind of take charge at this person, who I need to also do my what you call, now English has gone out of my head.
My English bundles have been on and off the whole day.
Like, oh God. This is the person who still needs to see you, who still you need to do your performance with them. How how can corporate look into that, specifically corporate? I'm saying it like that because I feel like there's a gap that we are not focusing on that leads everybody to feel like all I want to do is leave.
Absolutely. Well, I think, there isn't one way to address it. I think there's a number of factors that come into play. And the first one starts with understanding that organizational culture is created and maintained and sustained and protected by people.
Yeah.
And essentially, the direction in which an organization's culture goes is largely influenced by the type of leaders that it has. So, from the board to the CEO or MD to the exco and all of that, those are the people who can actually take very definitive steps to ensure that an environment is not a toxic environment, to ensure that the culture is one that does not tolerate any kind of bullying or discrimination or harmful behaviors and tendencies within the organization, whether they're overt or more nuanced and subtle. Policies are a big part of that. Because policies are essentially a guideline in terms of the expectations of behaviors, that people are expected to kind of conform to within the workplace, right? But what we're seeing is that policies are largely in place to protect the employer, and it's not a two-way street. So
Yeah.
employees tend to find themselves out in the cold when they are starting to want to address particular issues like bullying within the workplace, because there's no way to really prove it in most instances because of the nature in which it manifests itself in the workplace. People are getting more and more sneaky about it. Organizations throw all of their legal and financial muscle to ensure that they protect their reputations. And we are essentially operating in a world where it's about reputational management and protection of the bottom line over people. People are being sacrificed on a daily basis, and the people who get sacrificed the most are the ones who are already marginalized groups. So it's Black people, particularly Black women, it's members of the LGBTQIA plus community, it's disabled people. Because even if organizations are thinking about, okay, we're going to develop this amazing diversity program, who is it developed for and who was actually consulted in developing it? I find that a lot of corporates, when they are wanting to put in place some sort of diversity program, go and get consultants who are white to put together these programs. And I'm just always like,
Joanne.
we are here
Yeah.
because of the white lens. How do you bring in another white lens to fix an issue that was created by the white lens? And so for me, that really speaks quite clearly about the intention of so many corporates and so many organizations to, retain the status quo as far as that's concerned.
Have we even started the transformation stage? Have we started something in
No,
2020? Do you think we are moving towards something?
we haven't even started having the right conversations. We haven't even begun to define transformation in the right way.
Mm-hmm.
Because right now, when we speak about transformation, we're talking about numbers. We're talking about how many people are here, how many people are in this position,
Yeah.
what percentage of ownership is Black. And it's at a point where we understand that organizations will do as little as they can that is required in terms of legislation, just for them to be able to continue to do business, and to continue to make money. It's not about doing the right thing. We don't really have that many corporates who are interested in doing the right thing just for the sake of doing the right thing. And if you actually go all the way down and drill down what we're speaking about when we say transformation, if you think about the word transformation, it means
Yeah.
fundamentally changing the way that something works and operates. And that means looking at every single level of an organization and changing it, changing its systems, changing its recruitment practices, changing its policies, changing its people, changing triggers that are picked up on computer systems that identify particular groups of people that are then subjected to discrimination. It's about changing how decision making is approached and deliberated on within the organization. It's about changing who has power to make meaningful change within that organization. And until we start having those conversations, then we're not talking about transformation yet. We're kind of just wasting time.
Do you think that our leaders, black or white, I know predominantly we normally speak about the white who oppress the black mostly. How I wish I was the one having wine actually right now. I got flu, so I can't. Like, I didn't come prepared.
Listen, this is my last glass, and you know, Uncle Cyril did a thing here on
Uncle
Sunday.
Cyril.
I'm just like,
Hey,
hey, I was never ready. It's going to be very interesting.
do you think leaders are threatened by talent? And I'm saying it like this because most of the time when we talk corporate bullying, we talk about bosses who actually are demeaning, who are actually mistreating their subordinates. I mean, is that a threat situation? Is that a could she take my job? What is that little insecure about?
I think there's a number of things that kind of influence that. There is obviously there are people who do feel threatened, right? And so they act out in that particular way. There are people who are just not equipped to manage people. And so to hide that, they use bullying or other aggressive tactics to try and suppress people so that they are not exposed for not being skilled to be able to manage people. So they have to shift blame to other people. And then there's also the issue of, and particularly with Black people, the issue of this scarcity mentality of positions and opportunities within the workplace, right? Because we all have been, socialized to believe that there's only so many of us who can make it to that table. There's only so many of us who can be in Exco. There's only so many of us who might one day potentially be a CEO, or somewhere. And it gets even more competitive when you're speaking about it in the context of Black women, because then the opportunities seemingly get even smaller. And so it creates a number of issues. Number one is the issue of exceptionalism, where now we all want to outdo each other. We all want to be better than each other. We all want to seem smarter, brighter, sharper. But also we want to appear to be different from the other Blacks. Because we want to be accepted by the whites, so that we don't come across as threatening. We must be the good Black, the safe Black, the Black that they can relate to, the Black who speaks well,
the yes man. And I think that is the reason why there's so much a gap into why we are not even having these kind of conversations, because just our gatekeepers are not getting what we're trying to say. They're not getting that there is this I mean, I always say human, maybe it's because I'm from human resources, and I always say people are your best resources. How you treat them is how they are going to treat you back, and what you always put into their heads, the fact that they're not good enough, they're not this, they're not this. I mean, I've seen people throw people with paper across the table, and it's like, that's how we behave, that's how we behave. You did mention, especially with us Black women, there is that competition that is happening. In this midst of this competition, how do we have these conversations? How do we even try? Because now everybody's looking at themselves. I know there's a lot of women here on our platform today who are saying, but Black on Black is the issue, is the main issue. How do we even start with them? Because now they're looking at themselves like, I want to be the leader. I need to cross who and who so that I can get to the top. Everybody wants to get to the top. Oh, so that I'm seen as the greatest. I mean, we know of leaders who actually take credit for the work they didn't do, just because they were able to present it.
Mm.
Now, already you took my work, you presented it. What that does for me is what? What does that do to me? Because it's just killing my self-esteem, my confidence. It's like, also, you get all the credit, you get all the bonuses, you get all this, you get that, but I did the work. How do we start having these conversations with them in making this right and making it better? Because now they're focusing on themselves rather than everybody. And I feel like it's everybody's conversation. It's everybody who must create a work environment that is viable for all of us. We are all moms, we are all sisters, we are all, and there's a lot of things we relate to. If we were to sit on one table, we relate to so many things. But how do we even get them to start having this kind of conversations?
I think, one of the things that helped me on my journey and helped me kind of figure out the space and be dedicated to the space was firstly being able to deal with my own traumas, right?
Yeah.
And if I think about it in the context of being a Black woman, we grow up in a space that tells us, due to patriarchy, that we're here to vie for the attentions of men, right? You have to be prettier than the next girl, you have to be sexier than the next girl, you have to be. So it's not something that starts when you start working. This is something that's kind of, you grow up with it. It's repeatedly, sewn into your mind that you are just there to make sure that you're better, prettier than the next girl. It's never you at least are in competition with that guy for the top job. It's you're in competition with that girl because it's either or. It's only one of you. You're not competing with the men. You're only competing with each other, right? And that's one trauma. And so we internalize these things where you grow up as women and you see other women who are not your friends as a threat for whatever reason, right? And so you even see it, for instance, when you walk into a room of women. And how many times have you walked into a room and women you don't even know will look at you and go,
Mm-hmm.
and you're like, all I did was walk in. That is literally all I've done. I've done nothing else. I've said nothing else. What's happening? Why are we already fighting? And it was something that was just so disheartening to me, that this is the point that we're at. And that's why I've created even platforms like the Connected platform, because I want to create spaces where women get to interact with each other in a space that is safe, in a space that says we're all in this together, we're all fighting this thing together. And if you take it into the workplace, this Black woman on Black woman thing that happens, it happens a lot, but it doesn't it doesn't happen because Black women hate Black women. It happens because of the culture. And the reality is that I know a lot of people position it as Black women just don't like each other, but that's not true. Because it's an individual thing. If a person's an asshole, they're an asshole because they're an asshole, not because they're a Black woman. And I'm tired of the narrative that Black women don't like each other. It's a very individual thing. Just as Black men can do that, just as white women and white men can do exactly the same thing. It's not something that is exclusive to Black women that they do to each other. It's very much an individual thing, and each person is motivated by their own individual reasons. And one of the biggest issues why we have a lot of these problems is because all of us, for the most part at least, are so focused on looking out for number one. We don't have that view of, I'm looking out for the community, I'm looking out for the greater, I'm trying to do the greater good that's going to benefit more people than me, that's going to benefit the culture. We talk about the culture only when we're speaking about it from an entertainment perspective, when we speak about fun things, but we don't talk about doing things for the culture in real meaningful issues around social justice. And that's where we do ourselves a disservice.
Yeah, we do. I see a lot of people are saying HR is the worst place to go to.
Yeah, tell us.
Coming from me, very hard.
Kuluma, Sisi. What are you guys doing there? Okay, let me ask you. so many people that I have had conversations with, people who have read my book, and even from my own experience,
Mhm.
have very, very low trust with HR,
Mm.
right? Because they
Mhm.
feel very failed by HR. They feel that HR doesn't show up. The HR does not live up to its name of being human relations. You know, they're not about the people, they're about the organization. So, where is the disconnect as an HR person?
The disconnect comes when you now want to, it's like when you want to take a side in an argument. Just that. Just that simple. Because you come in and you must remember, most of the time it's that part of I'm being hired by a company. So I represent a company. I also am told about policies that if I want to change or if I want to come up with better suggestions for them, you're still being looked at sideways. That is not going to change. The fact that there are laws that when the company started were there and we're not willing to change them now, there's always going to be a gap. There's always going to be a gap. Two would be you're representing the company. These people pay my salary. So you're not necessarily, you're like 40% for the employee, not even 40, 30% for the employee, 70% for the employer. Because who pays my salary? Let's just be honest. Who pays my salary? So you're looking into the employer, not the employee. So in most cases, I'll give you an example. If somebody comes to with a grievance or something, it's always with all sectors I've worked in, there's always that part where we need to sort it out under the table. It's never an issue that it's brought up. Now, how are employees going to trust us if the first thing that we do is try and just make sure that their problem is minimized into something as little as a piece of paper and then we are done? Let's not go forward with this. Let's make ourselves look good, you know? And I think that's where the bigger disconnect for me comes. Hence, I'm saying for the past 2 years, that's when I've kind of been up in my feelings about what I want and what I don't want. Because I have been treated a certain way still in HR. I have been treated a certain way still in human resources where I'm supposed to be like, but how did we get here? Like how, you know? But it shows that our leaders are not open to talk about these things. Our leaders, our gatekeepers have decided that this is how things need to be. You can't change something that's not broken. So you come in, you're young, you're vibrant, you are very energized. You want to change things. You wanna make changes. You want to see things run in a different. You want to see women have a different conversation. A simple thing. You can come into an organization and decide that and suggest that, guys, can we have a women's month retreat? Just one day. Just that the things that kind of connects women together. Those are not things that are allowed. They're not. Even employee, it's always go via Ole, go via who, go via who. So just those little sidelines that we are doing for people, we are creating for employees, it's becoming harder and harder for them to trust us. I feel like we are now a now running political party. We can't trust each other. We have issues with each other. That is how I feel like we need to go back. We need to go back and reevaluate what is the purpose, because I personally feel like it's a very important part of the job. If you're in human resources, I need to take facts from the employee to bring them to the employer, and the employer must make sure that they accelerate this and this happens. But as much as there are things that we are binded by law and everything, the laws need to change to also accommodate us. That's how I feel. I personally feel that things that we need to change. What was written in section 16 so many years ago, does it still serve me now? Does it? Half the time it doesn't. And it is there simply because it was written by someone. Now we need to follow it. No. A simple contract of you are working from 8:30 to 7:30. When you are late, it's a situation. How is that? When you're saying, no, I can't work overtime, it's a situation. Those are the things. Those things show that we are not willing to talk. Those things show that the gatekeepers have closed so much. Like people left on the outside, you know? You find one person in a group of HR who knows 500 employees, people's problems because they trust that one particular person. But at the end, it becomes, it doesn't necessarily become she can sort out our problem, you know, because Leone, she's going to get barricaded every time she tries to come in. And I think that's where the bigger gap is. We have these platforms where we talk about this, but we bringing it to the boardroom, I feel like, is it being done? Because the higher people are trying to do it for us. I'm assuming, by the way, that they are trying to do it for us. Is it working? Why is it not working? I mean, it's 2020. And I experienced the same things that my mother experienced in the mining industry. My mother's been working for over 20, 30 years. What does that tell you? It tells you that there's no change. We're still living with the principles of back in the days, back in the years. Nothing serves me now as a young 2020 woman who wants to make change. Why am I still supposed to be going through what my mother went through? I remember going through that thing, and I went to my mom and she's like, remember how I lost my job? Because that's exactly how it happened. But that is the thing. We don't instill trust. And I don't blame employees for not trusting us, by the way. I don't. We don't have... It's like your backbone is your employer. You must choose a side. In simple terms, you must choose a side. Yeah. That is how it comes out, and that is how it is. Even when we have your own HR meeting in the morning to go through stuff, that is what it is.
Yeah. I think, you know, when we speak about this type of stuff, that's why it's so important to really understand who holds the power in organizations and how much power do they have. You know, I've had a lot of conversations with HR people, you know, over this period, and everybody's saying the same thing. Our hands are tied. I mean, you hear about when there is, for instance, some sort of grievance or some sort of mediation that needs to take place, and an HR person is told even before they go in that this is the outcome you are going to make sure we get. And the HR person must figure out how they're going to get to that point based on, you know, whatever that particular case is. But I think for me, the bigger issue is around the fact that we are wanting to, or are hoping to, create meaningful change when we're still operating within the same system that was never designed for us in the first place. And I think that's where things go wrong in the first place. I honestly believe that, number one, the leaders that we have are no good, firstly. Secondly, HR, if you think about its theoretical purpose and the responsibility that that role has, should not be a function that sits within the organization. It should be an independent function to ensure that it's not tampered with, to ensure that, you know, it's all the cases that it receives, all the reports that it receives, or complaints that it receives are all handled ethically, handled the right way, and handled in such a way that there actually is action and that organizations can't tamper with it. But then you hear stories about organizations even paying off officials at CCMA, and then you think, hey, well,
no, it happens.
Guys,
no, that is the truth. It does. It happens.
Where do we even start tackling this buffalo? You know,
it does, and you are right. And I think that's where I'm trying to go as Olebogeng with HR. That direction of, we cannot operate in an organization. We cannot be influenced by the fact that you pay my salary, because that becomes the thing that sticks in people's heads who run these departments. I read a comment now from Molebogeng saying HR failed me because they hid around policies. I feel like the very same policies, if they were for the employee, we could use them against them. The very same policies. But because they're written predominantly for the employer, they're not for you. They were not designed for you. They were designed to protect the employer. you can't use them against. They know where they get to protect themselves. Hence, I'm saying we need to change laws and policies. We need to put people back and give them. That's why people end up having a lot of unions, because they believe that the union can stand up for them, right? And then you look around in 2020, you realize a lot of corporate is not unionized. So who's going to stand up for you except yourself? You know, and I think you are so right in saying we need to stand, it needs to be a function that is brought in for that particular project. It needs, no one can influence this in any way. And I've always felt passionate about that stuff. That it's the littlest of things. It's humanity, it's empathy, it's those things that we can't even practice going forward to the next person, simply because I need to be hardcore now. Now I need to be hardcore and tell Sisha that, you know what you did there, you came late for 5 days. And those things are pushed upon you. Some people, I understand, they are pushed upon them so much so that they look a certain way. That's where we've lost this whole HR function of the company.
So I've seen people speaking about things like ICAS. Okay, so it's a very interesting thing for me, because a lot of organizations offer ICAS as part of their wellness benefits for employees. But the percentage of employees who actually use it is often very, very low. And that really speaks a lot to the trust deficit that exists between employees and employers. And I think people just generally don't trust that employers will allow them to keep their medical information private. Especially if you are an agitator within the system and they want to get rid of you. Just as, you know, if you, whatever you keep within the premises of the organization belongs to the organization, you know, there's all of these different legalities that we might overlook when it comes to that. And so tell the truth, really, these wellness programs.
I feel like I've just put myself in danger here.
It's a conversation, Sisi.
Wellness programs are supposed to be for us, I guess. Look, they're important. We need them, but we need them for ? Right? I feel like ICAS, this Gaelo, I think there's another one as well I've worked with. And in cases of trauma, I'm talking about like a hijacking situation, being victimized somewhere, and you call them, and apparently you're talking to a psychologist. That's the brief you are being given, right? I don't think they have anything to do with the benefits that we need to be giving the employee. And I feel like that, because I feel like we can bring a person from ICAS to come and tell us about finances. That's fine. We can call anybody from anywhere who runs a financial structured company to come and do the very same thing. Look, I'm not saying they're not working, but I'm saying for me, once I was like, what are we really doing here? You know, I remember at some point we had an employee who struggled with alcohol abuse. At some point, the wife passed, struggled with alcohol abuse. So at some point he started behaving a different way. And what happened was, give him the ICAS number. Did you call ICAS? So my job now becomes, did you call ICAS? Where's the human element in that? It's where does it show that I'm the employer who's giving an employee a benefit here? Where is that benefit? Like, let's just be honest about it. No, it ended up becoming to a point where I remember he got so drunk with a company car, and he locked the keys in the car, and he had to break the window to actually get the car. And then there was a hearing, and then there was a whole thing. And I remember being so mad. I'm not condoning his behavior, but I remember being so mad in the hearing that, so because he didn't want somebody to translate for him. He didn't understand the question. Now he's gonna answer it as, because I remember that the question had something to do with, did you do it deliberately? He was under the influence of alcohol. He had just told you he lost his wife suddenly, and then 2 weeks later he was back at work. So he's going to, we are not helping the employee. Right there and there I was like, but there's no point for this. There is no point. It's just there for numbers. It's just there because it's cheap. It's like 50 rand or so, or 8 rand, I don't know, per employee. So it's a way that what we are saying is, we don't want to do the dirty work. Let somebody do the work for you. That's basically how I feel about our ICAS, our Gaelo, our whatever.
The
You know,
sticking
I feel like
box.
I feel like they must come in and let's have a wellness day. Let that be fun, and that is it. That's how I
Yeah,
feel
like
about
a
it.
lot like Women's Day.
Yeah, like that's it. Come, bring your brochures. Let's talk and let's go home. That's basically how I feel.
So now we understand the predicament that HR is in. We also understand the dynamics within the workplace, particularly for Black professionals. We also understand the fact that the intersectionality of Black people is completely ignored within the workplace, and there is an unwillingness to learn it and to understand it and to incorporate it into organizational culture and policies. So why do we need to have HR still?
I don't know. Just go and do your own thing. Not necessary.
Mm.
I'm sorry, but I feel like, look, HR is I feel like we should call it something else. We should call it something else. I don't know what per se, but I feel like we should have people who are your clerks who are dealing with the paperwork that is being pushed at work, basically.
Payroll,
Payroll. You
sending
understand? That's
contracts.
basically what I feel we should do. I mean, that's the function that I feel like should actually be there. But the HR, for me, I kind of feel like it's the law of the company. So if, like we were saying, if it's within the company, it's easy for it to get into messy little situations. Is there a point to it? Maybe, maybe not. I don't see it performing a duty of the employee. I've once been to an interview and somebody said, I remember the boss said, if you're gonna be my HR officer, you better be for the company. I mean, the employees must know. Already, already that tells you who am I gonna be working for.
What
So
culture
yeah,
you're getting into.
as much I feel like it's a function that used to be. It used to be. There was so much that came out of it. And somebody said I shouldn't mention unions. I feel like unions used to do their job as well. And then now we're talking a different issue. Like you're saying, everybody can be bribed with anything right now. And I feel like HR is one of those departments that are very bribed. I've seen this with my own eyes, that are bribed to win a case, to lose a case, to do this, to do that. I don't think it is necessary to be kept. So look, like I said, I'm probably gonna be one of those people like, oh, did Ole say that? But that is the honest truth. We must hire people. We must hire people. We must. If we're talking recruitment, payroll, and I know, sharp. But policies and procedures, employee benefits as well.
Yeah. So
And employee benefits, I'm talking real benefits, not
yeah,
because.
yeah, not ICAS, please. And being forced to be on Discovery.
Yeah.
Guys.
Oh,
I mean, no.
like, before we started talking, I was like, we are bullied in so many ways, like in everything in a work environment. You're forced to take medical aid. You're not even earning enough. Your cost to company. The fact that it's not even explained to you. You know how many people, even in managers' position, have come to say, Ola, please explain a cost to company for me. That is not explained. That is not done, by the way, to other people. We are so bullied into how you need to structure your life. You're bullied into by 8 o'clock. When I call you to give me that report, I want it now. I remember there was a time I left the office. It was raining at around 9:30, and when I got home, I cried because I was like, "What am I doing to myself? Like, what is going on? It consumes you so much. That's why somebody will say HR is a dark place. It is. You say there's a demon in there that just goes around and just makes things worse.
So, mental health. Now, we all, are starting to speak a lot more about mental health and mental illness and the impact of, for instance, work environments on our mental health and our capacity, right? And all of the other strains that we feel outside of the workplace, because we're not just Black professionals. We're also, we're people. Sometimes we're parents, sometimes we're married. We have responsibilities at home, because for a lot of people, they're first generation being formally employed, first generation possibly being within a corporate environment. And that has its own expectations and responsibilities within a family perspective. If you're a woman, or if you're within the LGBTQIA plus community, you're also worried about gender-based violence on top of everything else. We're worried about road rage. We're worried about racism. There's all of these stresses that we're dealing with that weigh heavily on us, that we literally have to contend with and live through every single day. We're seeing more and more young Black people getting treated for mental illnesses. We're seeing more and more Black people being admitted into mental or psychiatric institutions. What conversations are HR people having around mental health and mental illness with leaders within organizations to try and do something that's meaningful, that's more than ICAS?
Did you just say my punchline was ICAS? So you just said that's more than ICAS.
ICAS is not it.
Let me take it to me. I hope I'm not gonna cry. I'm a crier, by the way.
Me too, girl. Don't worry.
I remember the first time the doctor said I've got anxiety, and the only thing I was given 2 weeks off. I need to, clear my mind, and then I'll decide going forward. And then I remember in that time, my boss didn't even care what's happening with me. All she wanted was, what are the passwords to your PC, right? Then I did all that, gave her that. But it was in that 2 weeks, Lisa, that I decided that I don't want to do this anymore, right? Because there wasn't even a meeting about what happened, because I fell at work. I fainted at work. I had something like defeats. So that's when that whole thing started happening. And I remember that day I said to my husband, I don't want to go back to that place. But the minute she passed, there was this huge attack on me and we are talking about an HR director herself. These are people who are sitting at the big tables, right? Mm-hmm. Do you think if that was the treatment to me, are there conversations being had about mental illness? Mm. The minute you start possessing that there's something wrong with you, the more we go behind and look into how can we help you? She needs to go. She's a problem. She's becoming a liability.
Yeah, you're a weak link.
You're a weak link. So I don't think these conversations are happening. Hence, we have our ICAS to come and take care of the problem, right? So for them, you being mentally ill or not being okay, it's a situation of give ICAS a call, but please don't bring your problems here. Here you need to perform. And I know how did that come about. That came about the week after my mother had a stroke. My husband that day hurt himself at gym and he couldn't walk. So I was kind of like going through a lot of things. So the following day when I got to work, and I said to my boss, because our offices were next to each other, I'm not okay. So please, like today I'm not in my highest spirits because I'm a very high-spirited person. Then I remember the week before we were doing, I'm new in this company, by the way. I'm 3 months new in this company. We were doing increases. So what I did, I had asked for a list of to who's getting an increase and given back to her to say, please double check. She missed somebody. She blamed who? Ole, the new Ole, right? After blaming the new Ole, she comes to my office, makes a scene. And she's like, yeah, I know what I need to do next. Fire you. I've just went through my own personal little hell, right? And I need to get home just to go see my mother in Rustenburg, just to make sure my husband is okay again. And there was this on top. How are they having those conversations?
Mm.
They can't. They're not. Let's not even speak for them. Let's not. Who's having the... I'm yet to come to an environment that says, this is how we deal with mental health.
Yeah.
I'm yet to. I've worked in different sectors, IT, construction, mining, and never have I ever seen anything come to us and say, this is where our focus needs to be. This is where we need to plummet the money into. Are we saying to Discover, come and even talk about mental health? That doesn't even happen. But Discover must come and do your blood checks and you must get your vitality stuff. That's what Discover must do. But these conversations cannot happen because we are all some way, somehow suffering again in silence. You need a job, you get kids to feed. It always boils down to that. And that's the part that always gonna eat us inside. It's going to kill us because we want to give so much, yet so much is taken away from you. But nobody ever thinks what gets to you, what becomes of you in that time. Work environments, I always say, you spend 8-9 hours there. It's supposed to be the best place to go to, but it's not. It's not. It's the Amanda session in your book. It's not. It has become so hostile for us that we're even afraid to say hi to other people at some point, because it's like, yo, I only see 5 minutes time. Right?
Yeah.
It is that.
I know that too well. Too well. I had nobody wanting to speak to me publicly. So I know about that experience very, very well.
So there's no way where I could say they are having the conversations or they're making plans for those kind of conversations. I hope they are making plans, but I hope they make those plans very quick, because a lot of our people are dying right in front of our eyes from strokes, from heart diseases, from a person who was perfectly healthy who just fell while she was jogging. Those kind of things must tell you that, you know what, we need to look into this.
Now, a lot of people are currently working from home. And obviously working from home for a lot of people has meant that if they're in a toxic work environment, they thought they probably would get some kind of reprieve being away from their bosses, but things have actually gotten worse because they don't respect your time, they don't respect the hours, whatever the case may be. As an HR person who knows understands how to navigate sensitive workplace issues, how can people establish boundaries around their time when it comes to interacting with your line manager or your employer?
You need clarity, boundaries from the get-go. I'm very, very clear as to 5 o'clock that laptop is closed. I am. It's not something I could be fired for, first of all. And I'm very clear in also saying that I could say some leaders have actually said, well, they were said to us that we know we are trying to navigate life around this whole working from home thing. I mean, it won't be, just make sure you put in your 8 hours. Just make sure you put in your hours of work. How you split the work, it doesn't really matter, but make sure that by the time the deadline for this is met, this is done, this is done. And I still get those people who are like, but Ole, I've got a boss who's going to call at 9 at night. Let's not take calls at night, at 9 o'clock at night. No. Your contract says you work from a certain time to a certain time.
Right.
And if you could prove that I've been working for this, because I remember when we started working from home, one of the questions was, how are you going to prove that people are working? Are you gonna put something in their laptops? But that's when you start seeing the trust that you have within your team, right? If you're running your team right, you will know that your team is going to do the work. And that is basically what is happening right now. But you do get those people who are just pushing it. But let's set the boundaries. Let's write that email to say, hi, Sihle, I will be on my laptop from this time to this time. If it's urgent, WhatsApp me within the parameters of your time, of your working time, between 8 and 4, or 4, 8 and 5. All right. We cannot, some things we allow in a situation, some things we are not even, we feel like we are not even supposed to say them. We should be saying them. By the fact that we are not saying anything is the fact that they come in now and they take over your whole life. I know somebody who just gave birth who's still working, and I'm like, honey, like, hello, you are 2 months into maternity leave and you must just work. How? You know? Yes, you know, the lockdown thing changed. No, it didn't change maternity leave policies. It didn't. You're on maternity, you must be with your child. So these are the things that I feel like there should be also where we also stand up for ourselves. You can be labeled this person who doesn't want to work, the lazy one, because I think corporate bullying is always mistaken for the lazy one who doesn't want to take an instruction. So we need to also put boundaries for ourselves. You could be an admin. I mean, receptionists come in and leave the office, right? So what do you need from that person to bring to send to you at 9 at night, 10 at night? No. Let those request emails come in. We'll see them in the morning, guys. You know, we are going to die. We are going to die from all those things of constantly on our phones, constantly on our laptops. I mean, we are home. We are also homeschooling our own kids. It's like we are trying to navigate so much in that. Your hours are no longer 8 hours, because I find myself on my laptop sometimes it's like 11 at night and I'm like, no, because I didn't have time to push. But that would have happened if, let's say, for instance, I had so much time to spend on my daughter's schoolwork, so I need to push the other work. But I don't need to be a slave. And I've got a team or bosses who will be like, you don't need to be a slave. If something's not urgent, it can wait until tomorrow. Yeah. We can't also be enslaving ourselves by not talking or telling the truth.
Absolutely. We've got less than 2 minutes left. I just want to touch on one more thing that a lot of people have been complaining about, and that is those damn WhatsApp groups. A lot of people obviously are very frustrated about having to be part of these WhatsApp groups because they are, for the most part, useless nonsense. But they get guilt-tripped into staying in them and participating, because if you don't, then you're not a team player. How can people navigate that? We've got 1 minute.
Our WhatsApp group is very clear. It operates only during working hours. If you're going to send everything other than that, it must be a joke or it must be something to make us laugh. But everything within working hours. Like I said, set your boundaries from the beginning. Hi, this WhatsApp group is strictly for work purposes, which means it will be operating from this time to that time. That's it. Please. I mean, if you get irritated, leave the group and talk to the boss straight. Sorry.
No, my thing with WhatsApp groups is all my WhatsApp groups are on mute, and I think I only have 2. But even when I was still working or when I was consulting full time, always on mute. But also, I only will respond if you say something specific to me, something that I need to address. Otherwise, I'm not involved. Also, I'm not here for your jokes. I'm not interested. I honest to God, do not care. Don't involve me. But thank you so much. Oh my gosh, we're done. We've got 10 seconds before the shuts down. Thank you so much, Ore, for requesting this conversation. It's such an important one. Thank you for everything that you've shared. And thank you to everyone who joined us. We'll be back next week with something else.